Hello everybody and welcome to day 2 of the Hearthstone Global Games. I'm Raven, and because someone's finally decided to get out of bed and join us, we do have Sottle with us today for day 2. How are you feeling today, friend?
Yeah, feeling much better, thank you. I thought the Hearthstone Global Games wasn't quite ready for this level of beauty on opening day, so we had to sub in Lothar just to lower the average sex appeal of the stream just that little bit.
Well, I'm afraid it didn't work, unfortunately, but we have plenty more matches to bring you today. We had some great series yesterday between a lot of different teams. We have 5 matches coming up, so it's going to be awesome. We can actually check out the format of this tournament as a whole in case you didn't get a chance to tune in yesterday or just want a reminder in general. This is going to be going on for 10 weeks total, just for the first stage. And like I said, it's 48 countries ban out, and there's only going to be one winner in the end, who's pretty much, like, you can't, undisputably the best country of Hearthstone in the world.
Yeah, it's an absolute marathon of Hearthstone. 48 countries boiling through their own respective round-robin groups, taking place over 10 weeks. That will boil us down into a second stage where we do it all over again, just with a smaller pool, and then finally into that single-a-limb finals. So long formats in Hearthstone are what you need if you're really going to challenge to see who's going to be the best, the dominant country, and that is exactly what we've got, an absolute marathon.
Yeah, I can't wait, just to go stage from stage and stage. It means that, yes, there's loads of games, loads of content for you guys at home to watch, tons of Hearthstone, and just a lot of great decks that we're going to see as well. Since yesterday, I know you did watch some of it as well.
I did, yeah.
We saw such a wide variety of, deck choices, like even just choices within those archetypes as well. I don't think we really saw more than 1 or 2 sort of even common decks, never mind, anything like that. So it was pretty cool. What did you make of yesterday overall?
Yeah, it was really interesting. I mean, we saw a lot of discrepancy between some very accomplished, very experienced nations who have a lot of tournament pedigree behind them coming up against some of these, minnows in the pool that don't really have that same experience. And that difference did show in the results that we saw a lot of the time. Secondly, like you said, just such a fantastic diversity of decks. But here are some of the results that we saw yesterday. Group A saw Sweden pick up a win in a fantastic match against China. I think they came back from 2-0 down in that matchup. So amazing stuff from the Swedish team.
Yeah, Oskaka really doing the work there as the 4th pick and the ace player as well. So that was definitely awesome to watch. And we see, there is only, maybe not even 1 match from every group yet. We only did 5 yesterday, and there's more groups than that. So this is going to be some of the games coming up today, though. USA versus UK is going to be coming up from Group B later on. We have Netherlands versus Romania as well. So 2 matches from Group B today, so we can see who starts to edge out at the top of that group by the end.
Yeah, and that's a fantastic looking group. Obviously, we're biased because of the UK content, but some great teams in there as well. We did dip into Group C a little bit yesterday as well. Russia, one of the huge powerhouses. In fact, my pick for this whole tournament, the Russian team. As a card-carrying Stanodachi fanboy, I, of course, have to pick Russia and have done for this tournament, and they asserted dominance over a slightly more inexperienced-looking Spain team who did seem to struggle a little bit up against the quality of Russia.
Yeah, then we saw in Group D, South Korea go up against Greece. 2 actual Hearthstone powerhouses, to be honest, and probably the top 2 picks in this group. But my team, South Korea, actually took the win at 3-1 as well. So we can see the game records being on the screen as well, which means that these are going to be influential in terms of tiebreakers once the group stage of stage 1 has ended.
Right, and that brings a whole new dynamic to the whole format of the tournament itself, which we will get into a little bit later. That game score does come in big. Group A, as of yet, untouched, but we are dipping into that one today with our opening match there. You can see the Scandinavian, the Nordic showdown between Norway and Finland is going to be our opening match.
Yeah, that's going to be kicking off the day. The rest of that group as well, Japan is one I'm very interested in seeing as well. We saw B787. He was a super cool guy to hang out with.
He was, yeah.
He brought some very interesting decks to the Winter Championships, but I just want to see more out of Japan in general. I think this is a theme for the countries we don't hear a lot from. It's just to see what they're going to offer. Then we see Group F with another match we've got coming up today, which is going to be France versus Canada. It's going to be a French-speaking showdown from other sides of the world, of course, but that's going to be a great one. But then Denmark, Belgium, Kazakhstan and Malaysia. That is, it might not look flashy on paper, but that is a very hard group.
Right. It's Hearthstone has our own dynamic where you look at some of these countries and it's like, these aren't particularly big sporting powerhouses, but the Hearthstone scene is dominant in a few smaller countries that you might not be expecting. And Group G now, Taiwan, picked up the win over Poland on week 1, much to the dismay, of course, of Lothar. But apart from that, everyone else still on that 0-0 record in Group G.
Yeah, and then finally, Group H, sorry, I'm just making up the group letters now. Czech Republic took a very close win over the Philippines. I've been rooting for the Philippines quite a lot. I think the squad is very strong as well. A lot of great players in there, but Czech Republic with Stan and Pekrovac, Czech Cloud, and Yara as well, looking pretty strong as well. Some of that deck building finesse from Stan Sivka coming in, but we do have Ukraine and Germany coming up later today in a match as well.
Yeah, and I think Philippines actually had every opportunity to pull out an upset on that series as well. A couple of decisions that I just don't think they got right, and they could have been our first big giant killers of the tournament, but couldn't quite get it done.
Yeah, but I'm very confident for them for the rest of the group. But we can check out and talk a bit more about the first match we've got coming up today, which is going to be Finland versus Norway. Like you said, sort of a Scandinavian showdown going on between these two teams. You can check out the rest of the matches we've got coming up as well. After that first match, Netherlands versus Romania. Going to be absolutely fantastic to check out there. And Lothar's going to be joining me for that one for obvious reasons and reasons we'll discuss a little bit later on.
Germany up against Ukraine to follow. Again, two of the real Hearthstone powerhouses. Ukraine, again, not a big sporting titan, but fantastic Hearthstone team representing Ukraine in this tournament. Canada versus France. We already talked about the French-speaking battle. And then the main event on last, as it should be, the United Kingdom taking on the United States.
Yeah, that's going to be a great one to finish off day 2 and, or at least end of week 1 for the Europe side of this broadcast, as America will be taking over tomorrow. But a lot of great matches coming up there. I mean, I'm personally just looking forward to UK versus USA. It's going to be fantastic. But we were saying just before we went live, actually, like this set of matches is just insane on their own. Never mind the whole scope of global games going to be continuing on across all 48 countries, but just these set of 5 matches are incredible.
Yeah, it could be the strongest day that we have in terms of, well-known players, and as well, even Finland versus Norway. Sure, those aren't the big heavy hitter players, huge streamers, huge competitive pedigree, but it's just a great matchup to have on the same day as well, right? Finland versus Norway, the battle for Nordic pride. And I actually had the experience of casting the Nordic Championship at DreamHack, which was an event that took place there with one representative basically qualified as a champion for each of the Nordic countries. They went head-to-head then at DreamHack, and there was a lot of support for those Nordic countries, particularly Sweden, of course, who were on home turf. But there was a lot of passion for Hearthstone in these countries that I got to see firsthand.
Yeah, and as we said, we are kicking off the day with Finland versus Norway. For Finland, we have Janetski, Kufton, Ursi, and Wampy as well. So that is, a lot of names you may not just off the top of your head recognize. But for example, Ursi has had very strong performances in DreamHacks for a start as well. Was it DreamHacks Summer, I want to say? And then Wampy has just been playing Hearthstone forever. Since the beginning. If you went into any Open Cup on any tournament organizer, you see Wampy's name somewhere on the bracket, and normally doing very well. And Kufton as well. I've been speaking to him a bit recently, and he's been performing very well on ladder. He's played again a lot of qualifiers, a lot of Open Cups as well. So Finland's looking actually maybe deceptively strong here.
Yeah, similar story for Norway, honestly. Zirez is a very, very accomplished ladder player in his own right. Diggen has some HCT pedigree behind him. And Zorkthar and Hunter Ace, the remaining players, of course, gathered a lot of HCT points themselves and Open Cup grinders in their own right. So they know exactly what's up as you get a look at Finland and Norway. Both, fairly similar looking.
Look at those mountains.
Yeah, similar looking Scandinavian vistas. Beautiful area of the world. If you've never been there, I can personally recommend Finland as a wonderful country to go and visit.
It's not quite like home, is it? It's a little bit nicer looking.
It's like home in that it's incredibly cold all the time, but it's a lot prettier.
Definitely. Yeah. But yeah, Zyra's as well, something that I think is very important, especially in the first few weeks of the Hearthstone Global Games. Zyra's very strong deck builder.
Oh, yes.
Very strong. He pretty much pioneers a lot of mainly aggressive decks, actually. Aggressive decks and rogue.
Rogue, yeah, I was going to throw that in there, yeah.
So he actually brings forward, a very strong impact into the team and being able to work out very quickly after the expansion and standard rotations kicked off exactly what he wants to do. So, as you can see, the players now in the lineup, we'll quickly go over the format format again, in case you didn't check it out yesterday. The players are effectively playing a team best of 5, with each player playing one deck within that best of 5. The players will play a best of 1 versus the opponent who's opposite them. So Wampy will start the match versus Diggen, and then they get to pick one of their 2 classes they have and not play the other one. They play best of 1, and then this will continue down that sheet until one team has 3 wins. All 9 classes have to be represented here, which means that we're going to see every single class potentially, or at least if it goes all the way. If the game goes to a 2-2, then a player is able to go back and play an ace match if it goes that far, which means that Zyrez and Ursi are the ace players. They can pick the deck they either didn't choose in their first game or the 9th class, so the ace deck, so to speak.
And as the tournament continues, you'll see this come into play more and more, because Wampy will see the 2 decks that are going to be revealed from Diggen, or at least the classes that are being played, not the deck lists themselves. He will then get to choose which of his 2 classes he wants to play, trying to get mind games in there or just a percentage basis of what he thinks is his highest success rate. Because we're so early in the meta, though, that's much, much harder to predict. So Wampy, now you're seeing, is going with his Shaman up against Diggen's Warrior. Both mages have been essentially self-banned by the Finland and Norway representatives.
Yeah, and what we've seen so far, we did see some aggro Shaman yesterday come out as well, so it's still a possibility, but Elemental Shaman seems to be the dominant force at the moment.
Yes.
At least for that class, whereas Warrior, it feels like the old Warlock days. Is it Zoo? Is it Handlock? We don't know, and it could be the Quest Warrior with all the taunts into the Sulfuris Ragnar's hero power, or it could just be good old-fashioned Pirate Warrior. We're going to find out very soon. Both these players getting there, ready there. Doesn't look like they're going to be joining their teammates live, but they are going to be on voice comms with the team. They are allowed to communicate and help each other when they're playing out the games.
It also appears that Diggen has decided to play through the medium of a cardboard cutout surrogate of himself, which is quite an interesting decision in its own. Seems to be a little bit of an issue with Diggen's webcam. Hopefully we can get that cleared up. But
yeah, I just thought he was really still. He was just in the zone, ready to play.
But yeah, Wampy Shaman versus Diggen Warrior is what we are going to see. Wampy representing Finland, Diggen representing Norway. And obviously, you've talked about all the common things that we can potentially expect. These are the options that we might see. There's also just the opportunity for an absolute curveball. This is still week 1 of a brand new standard rotation meta. And there's a good chance that some of these teams have been labbing and deck building in private and have not gone for the Twitter likes with their new deck lists. They have gone for the national pride and the significant amount of money that you can gain by holding back tech and taking people by surprise in this tournament.
Yeah, we could check out some extra information as well. I told you Wampy's been playing since forever of Hearthstone at least. And yeah, he's just got a long history of nothing too crazy in terms of strong, first place major finishes, but he's always been there in terms of performance.
Wampy is a man after my own heart. He likes salmiakki, which is a salty licorice sort of candy sweet from Finland. It is a very, very acquired taste. They love forcing it on tourists when you go there. Most people, they expect to hate it, and they were very, very surprised when I just asked for another one immediately afterwards. It's delicious.
I see licorice and instantly dislike that idea. But Diggen, on the other hand, we talked about his HCT pedigree. He's actually represented his country in WESG as well. And also, look at that. Diggen got introduced to Hearthstone by his marketing teacher. Wow. That is a fantastic teacher. I wish I had those when I was in education. Teachers that are like, you should do? Play this game. I'll be like, yes. Perfect. And also, Diggen actually half cosplayed as Han Solo when he was at HCT.
That's very true,
which is
yes.
A fact that is missing off that board, but we are more than happy to let you know. He does have a jacket that is very similar, and actually he posted a few pictures of himself as Han Solo, so that's kind of awesome.
Yeah, but you can see from that graphic, Wampy maybe with the experience edge, but Diggen probably achieved more in a shorter period of time with his HCT appearance, representing Norway at WESG as well. So the competitive pedigree definitely goes to Diggen, but Wampy does have that weight of just a larger quantity of Hearthstone games on his back. Maybe that makes him be able to adapt quicker to newer metas, makes him a stronger deck builder on week 1 of a new standard rotation. We will see, but this is all on the line. Huge opening game here for Finland versus Norway.
Yeah, but to be fair, Norway has Zyrez. So I imagine it's just I would just say, Zyrus, what deck should we play? And it's just go, pushing forward. But yeah, it's going to be a great one. And just to remind you, it's going to be the players play effectively a best of one versus each other, and that adds 1 point to the team score. So, you know, it's going to be first to three. There's a chance that the player whoever's queued fourth for the team just doesn't even have to play as well.
Right.
We saw that yesterday when Evangelion, for example, didn't play for Spain because they got 3-0'd and he didn't get the opportunity. So it's very important in terms of player ordering, class picking, and the way you pair the classes as well. As you said, much more going forward as the meta sort of maybe settles down a little bit in the next few weeks.
And that's actually a really interesting decision point for me is who you choose to put in that fourth position. Because like you said, there's a chance they don't get to play. There's also a chance they get to play when everything is on the line and the series is tied at 2-2. So do you put your strongest, most experienced, most clutch player there? Or there's also the argument to say, you know, because these teams were community voted, some teams have some just, you know, very popular content creators and streamers and YouTubers who potentially aren't the strongest competitive players. Do you ever get tempted to just try and hide them away in the fourth game and hope they don't get to play? Okay.
But to be fair, we look at Team Sweden from yesterday. Oskaka was number 4 and the ace player, and he actually did the reverse kill and won it for Sweden over China. So as you said, it can be a high-pressure scenario, but it could pay off in the end as we're going to get into game 1. Diggen looking a little bit more ripped than last time I saw him versus Wampy. We're going to sort his cam out soon, no doubt. But Wampy on the Shaman, and already we see Jade Claws, Jade Lightning, but these are common in elemental versions, right? This is not necessarily a Jade Shaman deck.
Yes, this is question mark Shaman. This could still be aggro, this could still be mid-range, this could still be Jade, this could still be elemental. These are basically just the high-quality Shaman cards that makes it such a powerful class. You can really build any kind of shell you want around this package of just quality, board efficiency, and removal. But Diggen, of course, Quest Warrior queued up. Early days, of course, but a big shout for one of the most powerful decks in the meta. And yes, thank you, Raven. In my opinion, also the most boring deck in the meta.
Ooh, that is a good start, though. Having 2 taunts already, you know, just dropping Dirty Rat on 2 might not be the best idea in the world, but having the taunts that are cheap and available to start chaining those, because generally with this deck, you kind of want to rush the quest out quickly, unless you're against a highly aggressive deck that you probably throw the quest and armor up. But the fact that Diggen's kept hold of his quest means that he wants to play it on 1.
So we will see Fireplume's Heart coming out from Diggen on turn 1, but now 1P having drawn a couple of cards here, we can see this clearly is the Elemental Shaman, and already a couple of interesting decisions. Stone Sentinel is in there, which is definitely not an auto-include from my perspective. Your late game does really get very crowded with the amount of quality options you can have. Fire Ellies, Blaze Callers, Calamos, and Stone Sentinel itself. Also the Stone Shaper, which is a card that I'm not actually 100% convinced on, even though that might make me sound insane. It does blow up your elemental synergy, the elemental chain of playing an elemental every turn, because it is not an elemental itself. And it often interrupts that Servant of Calamos turn on turn 5, which then sets you up to explode every turn for the rest of the game from that point.
Yeah, we saw players bring a Phoenix for the 4th slot, as well as Stone Shaper sometimes. So, you know, the Phoenix is an elemental, can get help deal with the small minions that occur onto the board early in some classes as well. So we have seen, I think, Sweden and China as well played the Phoenix. So, you know, we've seen some players mess around with that card, because on first glance, it didn't look too powerful. But like you said, it's an elemental on 4.
Yeah, just to get some housekeeping out the way, if you are new to the current Hearthstone meta, the Warrior Quest, 7 Taunt minions have to be played, and the reward for that is a 3-mana 4/2 weapon, Sulfurus, the weapon of Ragnaros, that transforms your hero power into the Ragnaros effect. 2 mana, 8 damage to a random target.
Yeah, Die Insect, indeed. So Bloodhoof Brave, pretty good pickup actually. Means that Digger can go into Stonehill Defender straight into Bloodhoof Brave from turn 3 and 4. And Stonehill Defender is going to be great as well, because that card, again, we'll explain some of the cards if you've not seen them yet or aren't too familiar with them. But Stonehill Defender is a 1/4 taunt for 3 that discovers a taunt minion as well. So as you can imagine, very, very good in the Warrior deck.
Yeah, I like this, though. This is the way I see the curve developing here for Diggen. Just try and farm some cards off this Acolyte, just because it's a very favorable board position for you. Flame Tongue Totem and Lightning Bolt are the only real 2 clean answers here. And now from here, you do have that 3 into 4 curve with the Stonehill Defender, which will, again, probably contest the board quite well because of the low health that's in play, straight into Bloodhoof Brave.
Draw 2. and do 0 damage to the warrior. That is a good Acolyte for Diggen.
It is, but Wampy just kind of had to respect it there because he coined out Acolyte. One of your likely follow-ups to a coined out Acolyte is Ravaging Ghoul. So if he just went face there, left 2 1/1s on board, absolute blowout for Diggen. So forced to just kind of draw in the 2 cards there immediately.
Yeah, and we can see sort of the future path here for Diggen as he has the 3-turn, the 4-turn, maybe even discovers a 5-drop. Does have Direhorn Hatchling as an offering, and I believe that he's probably just the best one out of the grouping anyway. And that means that he can go 5 and then, you know, fill out 6 by that point and have Curator to try and refill his hand as well. So there's a lot of juice in the tank here as Diggen does go for the Direhorn Hatchling.
Yeah, counting checks out. Bloodhoof on 4, Direhorn on 5. Wampy, though, playing the Elemental Shaman probably would have been quite happy queuing into this matchup. He probably, when they picked their classes at the start of this matchup, he probably would have favored this matchup. He would have picked the Shaman thinking, okay, if Diggen goes with his warrior here and it's Taunt Warrior, I'm in a very, very good position. Because Elemental Shaman just has all that beefy mid-game minions, you know, kind of Druid style in the old days where they used to just have so many big threats that they could maintain board against Warrior so effectively. But his start's been so slow here. Diggen's already played his first taunt for the quest now and is going to snowball ahead on board through his 2nd and 3rd taunt over the next coming turns. And that's the dream for this warrior deck, that not only are you playing your taunts, but they're actually dominating the board at the same time, which is hard to do because the taunts themselves are understatted.
Yeah, and now Wampy's got a bit of an awkward turn here. We're going to see he's going to play a Senjin without taunt, basically. And the reason for this is, one, he did not play an elemental the turn before. So his elemental effect, which is the battle cry with the taunt and divine shield, isn't live. Also, he doesn't have a 5-drop elemental, so there's no need to play the Hot Spring this turn either.
Right.
Which then could have procced the Stone Shaper for next turn. But he has a 7-drop elemental that he needs to activate, so he needs to save the Hot Spring to proc for turn 7 potentially. It's very, very tricky the way this works out. It's not as simple as I think a lot of people presumed with elemental decks of just, oh, you just drop one after the other, right? And it's like, well, sometimes that doesn't quite work out how you want it to.
Yeah, the big difference is when you draw Firefly early. That's when it does become very, very straightforward because you can play your first Firefly on maybe potentially even turn 3 to activate your Stone Shaper. You then have the Flame Elemental in your hand that you can just fit into your curve whenever. If you don't hit that 1-drop, then suddenly your Elemental curve does become a lot trickier, especially when you have to weave it around Overload as well at the same time. That just complicates things even further.
See a second Stone Shaper in Wampy's hand now, but you know he has to really rely on what he draws next turn, because if he doesn't draw an elemental, he'll pretty much just guarantee have to play the Hot Spring to activate his 7 drops and at least have the choice. Now we see Ali Armorsmith, another Stonehill defender. 2 out of 7 so far for Diggen on the Warrior Quest.
Yep.
But he has got plenty of options going forward now.
Yeah, Direhorn is more competitive on the board right now in terms of being able to pick up good trades into what he can see, but he will be thinking about Fire Elemental coming down from his opponent. That is a big 6-drop that's kind of re-entering the meta now with this Elemental Shaman deck. Not everyone is playing Fire Ele because of how high quality Blaze Callers are, but they also just kind of work with each other, right? You Fire Ele on 6 because it doesn't need an activator, and then that's your activator for Blaze Caller on 7.
And we can see they go for the Direhorn, and that dinosaur dies and puts a 6/9 taunt dinosaur in your deck as well. So, you know, that's got a lot of value going forward for the Warrior Quest, and just a big dude to be able to drop down a little bit later on. Or it could be drawn very quickly, but still so many options for Diggen. Sleep with the Fishes means that it deals 3 damage to any damaged minions that are on the board. So that seems to be the removal of choice for the Taunt Warriors nowadays.
It does, yeah. It's because of the amount of whirlwind effects you can play and the synergy that you sometimes get with... some of these decks are actually playing Battle Rage as well, which I don't particularly like, but it's something that I've seen in there as well, just to synergize with the whirlwind effects. But it's also just great with this Dirty Rat that Diggen has in hand, of course. He chose not to play it on turn 2, which is kind of a standard noob trap kind of play, just jamming the rat on 2. He's going to hold on to it, look to pick up value with it, with Sleep with the Fishes, or with Brawl if he is to pick it up.
This Hex was just insane for Wampy there. He could actually very cleanly play the Hot Spring, get some value of it onto the minion there, the Stone Shaper, to heal it back up. And the Hex just dealt with the death rattle of the Direhorn as well. So suddenly he's got the board. Honestly, once Elemental Shaman grabs the board and can continue to proc the elemental effects, it gets very difficult to battle that back for Diggen. He will probably be relying on some form of big brawl turn.
Yeah, but this is a really strong Ali Armorsmith turn. That might seem weird to say because it just gets farmed on the board, but based on the context of Diggen's hand right now, this Ali Armorsmith probably nets him 1 or 2 extra turns over the course of the game just by being a big taunt and having everything trade into it. And then if it's going to be answered cleanly, he's forcing more overextension like this Blaze Cooler to hit the board. And now what's his follow-up the next turn? Dirty Rat Brawl.
Yeah, that's actually going to be huge here. And this is the point, right? Diggen has to make a move like this, or otherwise he's just going to be overran. So let's see if he does go for it, or if he tries to hold on here.
Great recognition of the situation by Wampy, though. Chose not to take the value trade with the 2/4, traded off the small minion instead. That plays around Sleep with the Fishes. It also plays around Brawl. So Wampy is definitely recognizing what's up here, but I don't know whether it's good enough. I think the potential play from Diggen is just far too powerful in this spot.
Yeah, especially if Kalimos gets pulled out.
I think you can just have a really good read as well. Your opponent's start has been so slow. 2 of those cards on the far left, the Stone Sentinel and the Kalimos, have been there since the opening couple of turns. So I think Diggen can have a good read that there are some big minions in his opponent's hand here that he can rip out and deny with the Brawl.
Yeah, I mean, there aren't really, there's Fireflies, things like some early stuff, but in general, the deck's just top heavy anyway. Right. Like, even if you pull out a Servant of Kalimos, that's fantastic.
That's amazing.
It's just a 5-drop, but just a 5-drop is actually pretty reasonable when you can potentially clear the board off here.
That's what I'm saying. Like, there are Fireflies in the deck, but those 2 cards on the far left, those are not Fireflies. No, they're not early game minions, so they are very likely to be huge dudes. There is the Rat, hits the Stone Sentinel. That is a huge pull, not the best option for Diggen. That would have been the Kalimos in hand for Wampy, but still a huge, huge turn for Diggen, reducing the power all the way down to 2 because the weakest minion won for Wampy as well.
Yeah, and one of the problems is because the whirlwind effects you said, the warrior runs often as well, means that, if Kalimos goes for the refill the board, the Onyxia effect, so to speak.
Right.
It can just be answered so easily, you almost just never do it versus Warrior. But also, 6 damage to face, might not change too much this turn, really. And then 12 heal, not much, there's nothing to AoE. So Kalimos has kind of made a little bit redundant this turn.
Right.
But if you don't play Kalimos, there's no other elementals, so then next turn you also can't play Kalimos, or an elemental you may draw into. So this is where decisions get very, very tricky indeed. The Shaman player here.
I think he just has to shut his eyes and do it, honestly. I mean, there might be merit to just play it and say damage to face is on average more valuable than all the 1/1s because of just how easily the 1/1s are dealt with by this deck. He hasn't seen a single Whirlwind Ghoul or anything right now.
Especially because the 1/1s with 1 attack will do 5.
Right.
And then they might get cleared up. So
see what he ends up going with here, though. I hope that he picks the 1/1 elementals just because they are gloriously adorable when in Golden. They just bounce up and down a little bit.
They look very happy.
It is extremely cute. But yeah, I actually like this decision to take the 6 damage to face. I think, again, this is good recognition of the matchup from Wampy. Those 1/1s are not going to deal 6 damage on average. They're going to get whirlwinded away and do 0. So his job here is just to smork as hard as he can because he knows Diggen all the way up at 5 out of 7 now. He does not have long to hang around before Diggen can activate that Sulfuras and the Ragnaros hero power.
Yeah, he can activate it now this turn. Diggen can because he has the Bloodhoof and the Stonehill. There is options here. Sunwalker seems pretty good to me. Kind of a very resilient on the board, but also, do you want to just go really cheap and with the Public Defender, but you don't really need it too much?
Well, if you take Public Defender, you can play Public Defender. That's your 7th taunt, right? And then you have 3 mana remaining just to equip the Sulfuras weapon this turn. Then on the following turn, you can start weaving in the hero power. Curator plus the 2 mana hero power curves you out from there.
Yeah, to be fair, Sulfuras does actually kill off the Hot Spring as well this turn, so... Yeah, actually, Public Defender is going to make that turn very smooth indeed. See the power of Stonehill. I know you sort of brought me onto it in terms of using it in some other decks.
Oh, finally I get some credit. Finally I get credit.
I was waiting to give you credit on the big stage, so
okay.
I'll appreciate this.
All right.
But, the card is actually just very, very strong for what it is.
It's so powerful. He chose to take the armor over the Sulfuras weapon that turn. Interesting. Just a little bit concerned about how low his life total is getting. Of course, when you activate the Ragnaros hero power, you do lose access to that classic warrior ability to gain life. But still, this does just leave a 2-4 on the board that is going to hang around for some time now.
I wonder. Yeah, he's going to be able to get some work done. The Fire Elemental now for Wampy and Team Sweden in general. It's Team Sweden, what am I talking about? Just making things up now.
Oof, that is a risky business. Are you trying to say that every Scandinavian country is just an area in Sweden?
So I was the one who thought of Stonehills in decks being good, but I did not mean that at all. Team Finland, of course, means that you can play Fire Elemental this turn and just continue to guarantee the Elemental procs, because you have to kind of play the risk, right? Without having multiple Elementals in hand, it means that you have to like, well, I might draw one, and I can't not have it activated this turn. Yeah. Not when you're trying to apply this much pressure.
Right, I think Wampy was really searching that turn between Lightning Storm and Fire Ellie as to whether he could get the Calamos to connect to face for 7, but it just wasn't available to him, so he just had to go with this board development play. I do wonder about Diggen's decision not to play the Sulfuras last turn, though. I'm wondering whether that will have a significant impact on this game, just in terms of it being a little bit more difficult to use his mana effectively now this turn.
Yeah, nothing even looks remotely clean anyway, right? You know, everything looks a little bit off to me. The Fiery War Axe could be equipped to clear off the Hot Spring Guardian, but Sleep with the Fishes kind of does the same thing, and you could combine it with Whirlwind Effect as well. Maybe going for the Execute, or double Sleep with the Fishes, actually.
Double Sleep and Execute will get the job done. He can also Execute, equip the weapon, and Face Tank.
Yeah, just double Sleep gets the job done.
Yeah, sure. Right. Double Sleep gets the job done, but I'm just trying to find a way for him to get that Sulfuras into play, because he's not going to be facing much burst damage from hand against Wampy in this matchup, because of, you know, he's seen the fact that it's Elemental Shaman. Typically, only the Jade Lightning is the cards that you're using from hand. Sometimes there's Lightning Bolt, but not even always.
And Calamos has been played.
Exactly.
Which is the 6 that normally happens.
You also know that Servant of Calamos hasn't been played, so there's no chance for an extra Calamos to be picked up. Blaze Caller, of course, is more burst damage as well, but Diggen really trying hard just to get board control back before he drops the Sulfuras, which I guess he considers to be a safer line. I can't really dispute. He's been consistent with that line since he chose to go down it. So there's at least that, but we'll see if he's just giving Wampy maybe a couple of extra turns here that might make the difference.
Yeah, and we see, you know, Bloodhoof Brave, one of the few minions that stands up to Blaze Caller as well in terms of the damage. It does deal 5. This fire's probably going to go to face, because it won't really line up with the Bloodhoof, and you can't really use that Hex on the Bloodhoof just to get a kill this turn. I think it might be a little bit adventurous, but looking at Diggen's hand, he can play Cura in Sulfuras, but not Hero Power the same turn. It's going to be very difficult. You kind of just waste a Hero Power to a certain extent. Doesn't even need to play Cura this turn.
It's a tough decision. I mean, the fact that Wampy has sent that 6 damage to face will probably set off alarm bells for Diggen. I mean, there's just the option that he had no real other quality play in hand, and that was just the best thing that he did, which is the reality. But it will also cause Diggen to think about some possibilities of what this might be setting up. So again, I think this turn might have to continue to be a bit more passive than it could be. Still, he's had so many turns where he could have been firing 8 damage with that Sulfuras earlier on, but still has not been able to get it developed. Is this finally the turn now?
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? The only benefit I see for Sulfuras that turn, and plus hero power, was that you can just trade the Tauren into the 0-2, take a 50-50 on killing the Blaze Caller.
Right.
But it looks like he's going to get it equipped now, wants to, you know, turn the pressure, basically. He does have Deathwing, which is a card I've been seeing more and more in Taunt Warrior, as I think it's like 1 Primordial Drake, 1 Deathwing instead of 2 Drakes.
Interesting.
And it's one of those ones, I guess, that when you're being aggressive, you can just slam it, clear the board, because guess what? Your hero power does quite a lot, so you can afford to just blow the rest of your hand off. Okay, double Lightning Storm.
That's potentially huge as well, because that could mean 6 damage connecting to face here. He can Lightning Storm first, and then if he was to roll low on one of the minions and therefore not have it die to the second Lightning Storm, he could then Hex that minion and then Lightning Storm again to try and clear out both of the taunts, maximize your chance of doing that, and connect 6 damage to face. Wampi, though, it looks like went for the spell damage instead, which is another way of getting it done. If he hit that 25% spell damage, it would have been huge with the double storm.
Yeah, I wonder how good Stone Shaper and Hex is, though, now. Because Stone Shaper, this is
Strong.
the last turn for a while, Stone Shaper is going to be buffed.
Yep.
Divine Shield is very good versus the Warrior Hero power, as it effectively does nothing except remove the shield, of course. So it can actually clear off all this and create a pretty strong board, and I think I like this play. You have to take the chance at the strong Stone Shaper while you can. Ghoul, though, it's a pretty good pickup in itself.
Well, he just saw a Hex, and Deathwing sets up lethal here. I'm just going to throw that one out there.
I'll catch it. I like it.
Alternatively, he can execute and play 2 more taunt minions this turn. His opponent is very low on resources and has played a lot of his big minions already, so maybe it's a reasonable time for a Dirty Rat. It's actually not an easy turn by any means, and Diggen so far has played this game dramatically different from how I would have, so I'm not going to call which play he's going to make here by any means. But his line has been consistent. That's the thing that I want to bring up again, is that sure, he's gone down a different path than I would have done, but that's kind of the beauty of Hearthstone, is that it's a game of divergent paths, and you just need to pick one and stick to it, which is what Diggen has done in this match.
Yeah, it looks like he's going to go for the cool and the execute, and this allows him to just get the Daihon hatchling out, so going to skip a hero power this turn, which is reasonable. This is just safer. If he misses the hero power, you know, there's maybe some worlds in which the extra damage from the minion changes the outcome and wins the game. So, again, Diggen just taking the safe routes by the looks of things.
Yeah, and I don't mind this at all because, again, he's ahead on board. He's given himself 1 extra turn. He's saying, I might as well use these resources in my hand if it's safe to do so before I drop Deathwing, because otherwise they're just gone forever. I personally, you know, it's an argument over what the safe play means in Hearthstone. The safe play could be kill your opponent next turn. That's very
really safe because you've won.
If your opponent explodes, it's hard for them to counterplay you in any way. But commonly, when people say the safe play, they mean the more defensive play. That isn't always the case, but I do actually like this play from Diggen. He's in a very, very safe spot on the board with the board that he put together. He still has that Deathwing kill switch to come out on a later turn.
Yeah, now the Flame Tongue getting sick value. Giving the minion 5 attack and still killing off the 1 health. We see Daihon Matriarch shuffled into the deck. And another Ravaging Ghoul. So there we go. Not much more valuable stuff in hand for Diggen. So he's just going to slam Deathwing. Power Incarnate, indeed. And he's going to keep hold of the weapon. Doesn't need to just slam it and just go face with it. As he said, it pretty much opens up options for him this turn anyway. He's already thrown the second Fire War Axe, I believe, away. So there's very limited weapons in the deck anyway. So 7 of Kalimos, not too great when you've not played an Elemental turn before. And that looks pales in comparison to the dragon itself, Deathwing.
Lethal!
Game! Got him, and the Diggen is going to take the first game for Team Norway here. Going to go up versus Finland, 1-0. Diggen done his job. Wampi couldn't quite close it out. And we just saw just some awkward turns there as we...
Speaking of awkward...
You didn't see anything. As we see, you know, just lack of cards like Fire Elemental, which, sorry, Flame Elemental.
Firefly.
Firefly.
Yes.
That creates a Flame
Speaking
Elemental.
of awkward, yeah.
That just allows you to create the Elemental engine whenever you want, as opposed to saying, I hope I draw an Elemental this turn, you know, doesn't quite work out. So Diggen just take the safe route with the one of the strongest decks in the meta at the moment. It's rank 1 multiple times in the past few days on servers,
on
multiple servers.
That's just show.
Yeah, and show.
Yeah.
So, yeah, you know, the Control Warrior performing very, very well there, and I think that should have been a harder matchup than it really looked.
I totally agree. I think Diggen played it very well, though. I would have been tempted to go a lot more aggressive with it in a couple of spots that I spoke about during that, but his timing of the Deathwing actually worked out really nicely for him because he got that 1 extra turn to see, and crucially, that caused Wampi to play the last 2 cards in his hand, so he knew there was
like
no
nothing,
answer to Deathwing unless it was top-decked. But that is going to be 1-0 for Norway now, and it's going to be Zorkthar up against Kufton, and the Priest has been selected here to go up against the Shaman.
Yeah, so again, the Elemental Shaman is just sort of one you just expect, like a safe expectation from your opponent, I would say. But, you know, the Priest... There's been a few priest lists knocking around. There's variations on Dragon Priest, and then there's actually a lot of sort of combo priest with Lyra. It curves out at Lyra.
Yes.
Plays a ton of spells and also plays Divine Spirit in a fire as well. And to do truly ridiculous things. I think yesterday, was it yesterday where I was like, oh yeah, there's a 28-48 Lyra on the board.
Yeah.
On like turn 5 or something stupid. It's like, I think it was like turn 6 actually, but it was just like kind of crazy some of the stuff you can do in terms of just gaining that much attack and defense and just OTK your opponent out of nowhere.
There's also that package, Divine Spirit in a Fire, that can be played within a Silence Priest shell as well, which has been doing well for some people, with the humongous Razor Leafs being now a huge pickup. Curves perfectly into Faceless Shambler, which is just such a great extra asset for that deck to have. And then on top of that, there's just some standard Control Priest lists that have been going around as well. Just, you know, exhaust your opponent, beat aggro. But again, great addition to day number 2. These little player facts, getting to know these guys just a little bit better. Kufdun, second highest HCT pointer, 41 points in 2016 is not bad going. That is a big old pile of points.
That is a hell of a lot of points, actually. And Zorkthor actually was a competitive football player in his teenage years, which is pretty good. This guy, I think a lot of people, a lot of like the competitors at Hearthstone, you know, like the guys who are either pros or trying to be pros, whenever you talk about them, find out some history, it's like, oh, I played this game before, I played this game before. Generally very competitive people. It's not like Hearthstone randomly brings it out of you a lot of the time. They normally have a long and storied history in competing various games. We are going to get into game 2. Kufdun representing Finland on what appears to be Dragon Priest, and Zorkthor on the Elemental Shaman.
Well, I spy 3 cards that say the word dragon on them, so it seems like a fairly good shout. Yeah, Dragon
I'm good
Priest.
with my calls.
Dragon Priest, accurate as always. Dragon Priest up against Elemental Shaman, and again, Zorkthor missing that early game pickups that he needs. Okay, does hit the Hot Spring Guardian though, which is good enough to at least start to activate the power curve going into turn 4 and onwards.
Yeah, it's going to be great to see what makeup the deck is as well from the Norway guys, because it's like, again, you know, Hot Spring on 3 is great. You go into Stone Shaper on 4, great.
Question mark, question mark,
exactly.
question mark.
What happens after that?
Exactly.
And is that even enough? See, Dragonfire Potion from Kufdun, which is going to be great for clearing out those big boards that Shaman normally builds up as the elemental variant.
Yeah, Blaze Caller is going to be the big card to be able to play around that effectively in the late game turns. Of course, Fire Elemental gets gobbled up, Servant of Kalamos gets beaten, Tolvir Stone Shaper gets destroyed if it's lost its Divine Shield. But the 6 health on the Blaze Caller is such a huge buff. That card stacked up against Fire Elemental is kind of absurd when you think about it.
Yeah, it's absolutely crazy. And Firefly does come in hand for Zorkthor. And Zorkthor's
going to coin
like,
the second one, right? Yeah, I like this.
Yeah, it's like, well, Cleric kind of counters my Firefly, but this is also just what I need to do here to beat the Cleric, as Flame Tongue Totem is in hand. So if Cleric just hits him once and heals, great, but then Flame Tongue Totem hits the board and then game over for that Cleric.
Yeah,
Fireflies are nuts. 1/2s.
Yeah,
it's absolutely crazy.
Yeah, I actually underestimated this card just a little bit, just in terms of the amount of resource and stats that you could develop early. I just didn't even really factor the coin being an early game play into my evaluation of this card the first time I looked at it. It's why you see so many people get so many things wrong when you evaluate these new cards that come out, until you see things in play and how they interact and actually thinking in real terms about how you're going to apply these cards to different situations. It's really hard to understand their effectiveness. But Kufdun now, for Finland, has a choice between just draw a card with the heal or draw a card with the Power Word Shield. I think I would like to see the heal go down here, because he doesn't actually play around anything, particularly with the Power Word Shield. He plays around Maelstrom Portal, but his Cleric already doesn't die on board right now, and it dies to Flame Tongue anyway. Yeah. So I guess there's also Jade Claws that would kill his Cleric effectively if he didn't buff it. So maybe on balance, the Power Word Shield is actually a stronger play.
Whether you convince yourself out of that one.
Sometimes you've just got to talk out loud until you get to the right answer. It's the pitfall of being a Hearthstone caster.
So Zorkthor is going to go for the Flame Tongue and Lightning Bolt in the list. Very interesting.
Yeah.
Other than Jade Lightning Bolt isn't really super common in a lot of these Shaman lists we've seen so far. And Kufdun now with the Radiant Elemental. Great card. Probably would have been reasonable to pair with the Power Word Shield for free this turn. But obviously, you know, hindsight is a wonderful thing.
It would have been a huge pickup last turn, at least. Just have the extra 2/3 on the board and buff the Cleric as well. That would have been a massive swing turn for Kufdun. But he's just going to have to drop it here to contest this board state just a little bit. And it means there is a free turn of tempo here for Zorkthor. But again, now we enter into the world we talked about extensively in the last game. Hot Spring Guardian, does he need that as an activator for the next couple of turns until he can play Fire Elemental? Or is it more beneficial to just play it on the board as a 4/4 right now?
And he just heals his opponent's face. The elements will destroy you. A bit of fun going on between the teams here. But I think that, you know, the key was what you said at the last bit. With the Flame Tongue Totem, making it a 4/4.
Yeah.
Guess what? 4 attack minions are hard to deal with by Priest. And
drop your coin in the caster swear jar, Raven.
Yeah. Come on, that doesn't count. It was on purpose. The Twilight Drake is actually a really strong pickup here for Kufton. Just has something to play that is going to help contest this board. And the 4 attack on that is actually going to clean up the Hot Spring Elemental very nicely. But now, Zogthar has no elemental to play when we can spy a Servant of Kalimos ready for turn 5. And this is how the deck becomes very, very tricky, actually, because now, you know, he could have actually just hero powered. It's fine. He still gets the trade-off. He could have even just dropped Thalnos, for example, and he could have Hot Spring this turn into Kalimos, into Fire Elemental, started rolling the chain, but, you know, that wasn't the choice Zogthar made, and now it's kind of punished because this Kalimos is just going to sit in hand.
And that's exactly the question I asked. Was the 4/4 a bait? That's the question, because now that Servant of Kalimos, like I said, to me, this is the best card in the deck. Servant of Kalimos is the most powerful effect in this entire deck, because if you play it on 5, you can look at the rest of your hand and pick whichever elemental lets you go off from now until turn 8 or 9. So in this case, he'd go Fire Elemental, he'd be looking to pick up a Blaze Caller. Then that's 5, 6, 7 done in incredibly powerful methods.
Yeah, and there was a Maelstrom, a Firefly, and a Fire Elemental as the choices there. We didn't get to see on screen, so he did go for the Fire Elemental.
Double Fire Ellie being played in Zogthar's list here, which is, I'm wondering how many Blaze Callers he's pairing alongside that as well.
2 as well. You just go full fire. I've seen it a few times.
I've seen it
list,
too.
yeah. Now Devolve, still not an Elemental to play. So it looks like Fire Elemental is going to have to come down next turn to get some work done. What's the Devolve going to kick out? Ah, pretty reasonable.
Yeah.
One more point. Oh, is it 7-2 to me now in Devolve Wars?
I mean, that wasn't... He just 2-for-1'd himself. How is that good for him?
That was really good.
God damn it, Raven!
I told you, I make up the rules to this game.
All right. But the awkward part of that turn is that, like, Lightning Bolt was a clean removal already before he drew the Devolve. But if he Lightning Bolted this turn, then he can't Fire Ellie the next turn. Then we're back in Servant of Kalimos not working world. So had to go for the Devolve. It was a good top deck in the sense that he needed an answer to the problem that was in front of him, and Devolve did solve that problem.
That's the one extra additional point for you admitting I was right. Yep, so the Mana Titan dropped in the middle makes it a 4-attack minion. So that's kind of, you know, a kind of cute play there. Makes it uninteractable with cards along the lines of, you know, Potion of Madness as well.
Yep.
Could be kind of awkward. And definitely a card you see in Dragon Priest now and again. And it has a huge impact. The Fire Plume Harbinger going to be joined to the hand of Zogthar. And that card actually reduces the cost of the elementals in hand by 1 as well. So it could help out with the curve if it even comes to that.
Well, right back at you, buddy.
Yeah.
You Fire Elemental me, I Fire Elemental you back twice as hard.
Imagine it's going to be used to trade here. This does now start to open up options. The Fire Plume Harbinger 1 reduces the cost down of the elementals, but it's also just a cheap elemental to drop into a turn now as well. So that's going to be nice, giving Zogthar a few more options. And another player playing Stone Sentinel. I'm still not convinced by this card personally, but I may be wrong.
I mean, also we've learned that Zogthar has 2 Fire Ellies in his deck, so I'm assuming there are Blaze Callers in there as well.
I would hope so.
So suddenly his deck is really, really top end heavy, right? When there's 2 Fire Ellies, at least 1 Blaze Caller most likely, and the Stone Sentinels, and of course Kalimos almost always is in there as well. Very, very greedy list that Zogthar's put together here, but that extra value might just be what he needs going up against a very value-heavy deck in Dragon Priest. Yep,
the options here are Onyxia, Draconid Operative, and Primordial Drake as well for Kufton. So it has a few of these Dragon Discovers. I always like just picking the Operative because it's just a great card, can generate you even more value going forward. And with cards like Lightning Storm, very common in Shaman, then, you know, Onyxia doesn't really do too much. Did go for the Primordial Drake, though. That's another option of Tolve Stone Shaper, Maelstrom, and Lightning Storm. Went for the Lightning Storm this time.
Yeah, Kufton now is looking in pretty decent shape for the long game here. 3 decent chunky AoE effects with the Primordial Drakes and now the Lightning Storm that he's been picked up. And in standard Scumbag Priest style, only one of those cards started in his deck.
Did have Dragonfire Potion as well,
Yep.
to be fair, so it's going to be really nice. I mean, dropping a Primordial Drake and then Dragonfire is just fantastic. It's got so much health and doesn't even get affected, as it is, of course, a dragon itself. Kind of like Kalimos here. Servant of Kalimos.
You could double bolt the 5/6 alongside it as well and just push face, trying to end the game quickly. Because I think even though this list is very greedy from Zorkthar, I think he has to expect to be outvalued eventually by Dragon Priest.
Because of Dragonfire Potions as well.
Because of Dragonfire Potions and also the fact that, you know, Draconid Operatives are much harder to activate these days, but they're also quite often infinite because there's so few dragons that when you drop the Netherspite Historian, you get offered Draconid Operative a staggering amount of the time now. So Draconid Operatives being played 4 times or more is an everyday occurrence these days in Dragon Priest.
Yeah, and it's going to be overloaded with those lightning bolts, but Kalimos was actually picked up from the Discover, so that's 6 damage to face as well, guaranteed. Not next turn, but with that Harbinger the turn after at least, if wanted. Looks like Team Norway are in a very, very good position to potentially go 2-0.
Are they? Are they, though, is my question. This board can be cleared from Kufton, and Zorkthar has nothing to do next turn. Unless he picks up something to do, his turn is 1-1, Totem, and Pass.
It's a sick turn. Developing minions onto the board when your opponent doesn't. It's basics of Hearthstone, come on.
All right.
Now, I think the 6 damage from Kalimos can potentially draw a second Kalimos as well, which means that it's just too much to handle at that point. But yeah, you know, there is definitely a chance. I am not saying Zorkthar has won this game, but definitely in a strong position, because I feel like if the deck is as heavy as it looks, then he's probably going to keep drawing big dudes.
Well, he needs specifically a medium-sized dude right here, because another huge guy won't be able to be played. Perfect.
Told you.
Nailed it.
It's fine.
Deck management.
Exactly.
Yeah.
The combination that we talk about of Stone Shaper being a problem isn't when you fit it in with an Elemental in the same turn. This is looking better and better. The only awkward thing is Stone Sentinel, the whole thing just dies to Dragonfire Potion very, very easily. And there's a second one for Kufton, which means he can be more liberal with his AoE as well, because he has that sort of emergency switch Dragonfire Potion available again.
Kufton here, looks like Primordial Drake is coming down, but he's deciding what he wants to do with this Cleric. He can either trade it into the Divine Shield first to do 1 more damage to the Stone Shaper, or he can hold on to it like this, which leaves the damage... Which leaves the damage off of the Stone Shaper, but protects his Cleric on the board now to potentially draw cards. And he also chose to use the randomly generated Primordial Drake, which reveals a little bit of information to the opponent that he didn't need to do. He could have used the one that was naturally in his deck, and then that Netherspite Historian card would have remained a mystery to Zorkthar.
Yeah, and something to bear in mind as well, you know, Kufton and Zorkthar are the pilots, but the whole squad is, you know, for each country is playing this game together. Yes. And, you know, that becomes very easy to track cards when, you know, you're actually with multiple people, right? You know, tracking cards on your own whilst managing everything else that's involved in playing, it's very difficult. But if you just have one of your teammates say you track cards, that becomes a lot more easier. And like you said, giving away information like that can actually cause some issues. Yeah,
worth noting that, you know, it's the choice of the players as to whether they all play together. They don't have to. They could choose to solo.
You can see them both talking, though.
You can see on the webcams that both of these guys are extensively talking, so unless they are both, in fact, insane and talking to themselves constantly, there's probably a good chance that communication is going on. But
Dragonfire Potion's a good card.
It's solid, yeah. Do you want to heal and draw a card here first? Or do you want to develop behind it? I imagine you probably want to develop behind it, right?
Yeah, especially because the Priest of the Feast just sits so well. You know, slots straight in, perfect mana curve. And the Talon Priest doesn't do much when your minion on board is a 4/8 already. Doesn't get damaged by Dragonfire Potion, of course.
Yep.
And then, you know, you can start just going really crazy because Kufton, although relatively safe on board with this Dragonfire Potion, is at 14 health. So it means that the Priest of the Feast setting up next turn means it can get very defensive, and this is very difficult for Zorkthar to deal with. The in-deck Kalimos Looks like it could be the play this turn as opposed to the reduced one. The powers combined. He's got the choice of 4 options here. We're going to see them. Everyone take a minute to just check these guys out.
Dude, I mean, come on.
Nah.
They're so cute.
They're so happy.
They are about to get lightning stormed really, really hard, though.
Don't look. Look away, Sol.
Actually, I misspoke. They're about to get primordial draked really, really hard. Actually,
oh, no.
Storm Death. Storm Death, Primordial Drake, go face. These are both good plays, Raven.
Yeah, I like just pushing all the face damage, though. Because it keeps the Drake alive as well.
Yep.
Well, it would kind of... Oh, no, it would have to trade off, actually. Yeah, the Storm into Death actually just keeps the Drake alive.
Storm, Death, Shield, Talon Priest, even. Like, you can actually just jam the majority of your hand here, make a pretty much unkillable board.
Even with the Overload, you can still play the Drake next turn.
Yes.
So, look away.
You monster, Kufdun!
But yeah, Shadow of Death looks like a very easy pickup here. This Priest of the Feast is going to combo some healing to go along with this powered shield, and Kufdun is looking more and more stable, and this looks like it might be pushing the other way now, a little bit too much to deal with. We do see the Potion of Madness in the deck as well. A very nice card causing some havoc, you know, in unexpected decks in the current meta.
Man, Priest of the Feast is so strong when it sticks. It's just taken any out away from Zorkthar here by the amount of just burst heal that it's been able to pull out here. And now...
I'll just get through that health.
Yeah, I mean, this is the kind of situation. Kalamos is a great finisher because of the burst damage. It's a great board development because of the 1/1s. Hey, they're back. But it's not good at dealing with big boards, mid-range boards. It's a great aggro board stopper because of the 3 damage AoE, but this just doesn't quite get the job done.
Kufdun's going to make one of them beat the other one up with Shadow Potion of Madness, then he's going to Bookworm another one. He's not really, he's probably going to just drop Primordial Drake, clear them all up in one fell swoop.
This is just a massacre. Send your children to bed, they should not be exposed to this.
Those sounds, I don't really want to listen to that. They're like, ah.
It's fine, Kufdun. We'll forgive you. But if you kill objectively cuter cat out of the alley cats next time we see you, then you are dead forever to me, my friend.
Okay, well, Zorkthar has the Lightning Storm, but Lightning Storm with minions with 8 and 9 health, not going to do too much. The Stone Shaper going to come down with the Elemental proc. Does mean that it's going to have the Divine Shield and stave off some of this aggression. So Zorkthar not dead yet.
Needs a dragon. That's not a dragon. Dragon would have activated the Bookworm to snipe out the Stone Shaper.
Holy Nova's kind of sick, though.
Holy Nova does the job pretty well, too.
Yeah. Do you ever take the Healing Totem? It'll heal your minions back up, right? Or does it go back before it heals?
Hmm? No, you get the proc first before it goes back.
Right?
I believe. It's a long time since I've done that, but that...
It's a long time since I've Potion of Madness, a Healing Totem.
Yeah, my brain tells me that's how it works. Yeah. If we're wrong, feel free to rage at us, chat. Not that they need permission, of course.
Yeah. No doubt it's going on anyway. But Kufdun just, you know, taking advantage of the high health of his minions here. Even going to heal the Priest of the Feast, because why not? The Priest of the Feast has done the work for Anduin here, healing him all the way back up to 28 now from, I believe, 14 he was at. An Igneous Elemental. Not gonna do it.
Again, slightly fringe inclusion in this deck.
Yeah.
Not seen all the time in these Elemental Shaman lists that I've been encountering on ladder mostly, or even the few tournaments that we've seen being played. Obviously a fantastic resource card, and another 3-mana elemental that can set off that curve into Stone Shaper if that's what you're going for, but just a very weak body individually can cause you to lose a ton of tempo early on.
Yeah, what's kind of interesting is, at what position are you okay with playing Igneous Elemental on 3? I feel like in the control matchups, sure, but in any other matchup, you're always behind, and a 3-mana 2/3 isn't going to help at that point.
Right. So he is going to play it out this turn, which means a top deck Servant of Kalamos, for example, would be allow him to start up the value engine again if he gets there, and that's probably just where he is in terms of mindset right now. He needs a good draw next turn to stay in this game. Might as well maximize his opportunities of making that draw successful.
Yeah, I wonder here, do you actually just not kill the Igneous? Because if an Elemental's drawn this turn, it's played, he can't actually kill off his own Igneous, which means he can't, you know, he actually reduces the chain down.
Yeah, it's
so
cute. It's cute, but I like it.
Yeah, because this means that, well, worst case scenario, there's going to be not a ton of effects here going on. And suddenly the Potion of Madness combined with Bookworm, I think is going to close this game out, even with the top minions on the board.
Such a greedy list, though. That's the second Stone Sentinel now, alongside all this stuff. That's crazy. But as you said, Potion of Madness, along just the potion itself is good enough to get the job done, so he's not going to reveal any extra cards right now. And Kufton is going to square up the series for Finland, taking that win with the Dragon Priest, which I think is safe to say has surprised a lot of people as to how powerful Dragon Priest still is, despite losing basically every dragon in the game with this standard rotation.
Yeah, I mean, you know, everyone just presumed, oh, Dragon Priest is gone, right? No Twilight Guardians, you know, many other cards just disappearing out of the set. But, you know, like a few days in, I saw like, oh, Dragon Priest rank 1 legend. At one point I was like, what?
Yeah.
Is someone trolling me? I looked at the list, I was like, okay, I'll give it a whirl. Wow, this deck's good.
It's really powerful.
Yeah, it's actually, so honestly, if you're a fan of Dragon Priest, you're still okay. You're actually feeling pretty good about life. But we can see it now that all these teams are even at 1-1. Kufton taking the win back for Finland there. So next up, we have Ursi versus Hunter Ace. And Hunter Ace doesn't have a Hunter, which disappoints me a little bit. But I know, I think Ursi does enjoy his Hunter play, to be honest. So fingers crossed we might see that out from him. But it's not all about what you want to play. It's about what your opponent's classes are as well, and what you believe to be strong, because the other class that Ursi has is Warrior, and we've seen the power of the Taunt Warrior over the course of the past 2 days.
Yeah, so Warrior Hunter going up against Priest Druid, potentially. So, I mean, the Dragon Priest does have the potential to outvalue the Taunt Warrior some of the time and just get there. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the Hunter getting picked, and it is. Ursi is going Hunter. I say Ursi is going Hunter. Was what I was about to say. Dragon Priest, potentially from Hunter Ace, but again, all those other Priest archetypes potentially that we've talked about as well. It does seem so far that for tournament play, Dragon Priest is the most successful and the most consistent in the limited sample size that we have so far. So that's the matchup I'm expecting to see. And I know you're classically a huge Hunter fan, but I've also recently switched to mid-range Hunter on EU Ladder, because it's very, very effective against the 2 most common decks, which are Quest Rogue and Quest Warrior. So I'm a big fan now of mid-range Hunter as well. Ursi is as well. You just saw the players there getting themselves ready in their cold native climates of Finland and Norway, respectively. But I'm looking forward to this matchup.
Yeah, I just want to see more Hunter. But also from Priest, Lyra is just amazing. I was speaking to Lothar yesterday. The voice work on whoever did that, high five.
Oh, really? I play on mute, so I have no idea. What? I'm just not a role player. What do you want from me?
All the work Blizzard put in.
I know. I'm sorry. I personally
push him off.
I personally apologize to all of Blizzard's sound designers. Your work, which I'm sure is fantastic,
it is magnificent.
Is lost on me.
These players are also magnificent, though. Ursi, as I said, you know, second place at DreamHack, losing to Purple. It was winter, not summer. Ugh. My bad. But also, you know, very consistent player. I believe like that was mainly his standout performance. And then from then, you know, qualified multiple times to HCT as well. So, you know, he's been performing very, very well, and definitely a name to not skip over when you see him in a tournament lineup.
Yeah, it's missing one fact here, which is that he's also Tides of Time's twin brother. I'm not surprised I'm surprised that we don't have that fact on here as well. But Hunter Ace, interesting fact about him. We talk a lot about Amnesiac and George C that we'll see going up against each other later, potentially as the 16-year-old prodigies of Hearthstone. Hunter Ace apparently right in that bracket as well, 16 years old himself and representing his country at the highest level.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. You just think, you know, how good is he going to be in a couple of years or a year's time? You know, he's really good now, but you just think he's got so much time to continue to improve and continue to perform. We are going to go into the game, though. This is game number 3. Finland versus Norway, here at Hearthstone Global Games. Ursi on the Hunter, rocking the Scavenging Hyena that's made a return to a lot of Hunter decks. And Hunter Ace not playing the Hunter, in fact, on what appeared to be the Dragon Priest Nether Spite storing in hand. And also rocking a Potion of Madness that he kept, and quite rightly so, as it's very, very good versus Hunter.
Yeah, Potion of Madness going second is essential, because if your opponent goes turn 1 Alley Cat, and then you don't have an answer to kill both of those minions, suddenly Crackling Razormaw comes into play. This is a new card that just adapts a beast, and it's so much early game tempo if you hit it on a 1-drop. So actually, weirdly enough for Ursi right now, it's better for him to have the Fiery Bat as his opening than it would be to have the Alley Cat because of that Potion of Madness counter.
Yeah, and we see as well, Ursi is running the Bittertide Hydras, which is kind of been dipped in and out of people testing them in a lot of aggressive decks, because at the end of the day, it's a 5-mana 8/8. It can do a lot of damage. The fact it's a beast helps Hunter specifically, and Druid a bit as well, but Hunter out quite a lot. Procs kill command, can be Houndmastered, etc., etc. And it's just a huge minion. And in Hunter especially, you're not really too concerned about your own health. So the drawback isn't normally a huge problem.
Hey, look at that, a Draconid Operative from his Netherspire Historian.
I never would have guessed.
Who would have thunk it? Razormaw coming down here, +1/+1 and plus attack are both useful here. Poisonous does the job as well. +1/+1 is fantastic because it actually plays around that Potion of Madness as well.
Taunt, Divine Shield, and Liquid Membrane, which is untargetable by hero powers or spells. So none of those really what you want. I guess you just take the Divine Shield at this point.
Sorry, you guys can't see this, but the golden animation for the Taunt adaptation
massive,
is fantastic.
Oh, now he appreciates some work Blizzard do in the game. Thanks.
Hey, I don't play with a blindfold. I do look at the game.
I thought you were good enough to play with a blindfold. So
well,
that's like what you make out to me anyway.
Fair enough. But back in the real world, these are all pretty terrible options for Ursi.
Yeah, I generally think the Crackling Razormaw is one of the most powerful cards in the set, but you can just whiff on Adapt to the because Adapt is just so situational, right? And that's why there's not always just a good one all the time. You might need something else quite a lot, but. See, Divine Shield not too shabby. Hunter's Mark being played by Ursi as well. We've seen more and more Hunter decks actually drop this in. Probably is a huge nod to the Control Warriors.
Yes. Yes, I think Hunter's Marks, Deadly Shots, those are the tech cards that you potentially want to put in your Hunter deck if you're coming up against Taunt Warrior a lot. The build that I put together that's been successful for me is just playing a massive pile of late game minions. It's not really worrying too much about the tech cards. I just play a ton of 1-drops to get onto the board early, a ton of late game with Hydras and High Mains and all that kind of stuff, and then just Tolville Wardens to bridge the gap and make your deck denser in the late game. But Hunter's Mark can definitely get the job done very effectively here.
And the power of Potion of Madness, absolutely insane. Just completely reduced down the board for Ursi. And at the moment, Ursi doesn't have anything to play this turn. And these are the scary moments for Hunter. The second you lose the advantage, the board, and the tempo, it's very hard to get back. As the Hunter class in general. The Hunter's Mark is going to be nice later on to deal with Draconid Operative, Twilight Drake, whatever needs to be pushed through or easily removed. But without any minions, not even an Unleash to be able to combo it with, it's going to be very, very difficult indeed.
I'm interested. Hunter Ace there chose to go with Powered Shield on his previous turn alongside the Potion of Madness, where he could have dropped Cleric onto the board. Curving into Talon Priest, potentially, it might have been more beneficial to have the Cleric on the board, because then you're putting the Talon Priest buff on a much more relevant target.
Even that turn, there could have been Cleric Heal.
Sure, but then you're giving back a little bit of tempo to the opponent.
And then you play an even bigger Twilight.
You're not developing stats on the board. So I think Talon Priest was definitely coming down this turn. It's just a matter of, how relevant is this 1/6 in the long run. But with how poor this draw is so far from Ursi and how powerful the start from Hunter Ace has been, it's really not making that much of a difference. And Bittertide Hydra is a very, very strong card when you are ahead or at least at parity. When you're behind, it's a pretty miserable feeling to drop this guy onto the board.
Yeah, and I think Hunter Ace will be more than happy here to swap out the Priest for the Twilight Drake and just trade off again and say, well, you struggle to do anything at that point. Houndmaster not fantastic on its own, of course. Tracking coming into Ursi's hand now. Again, just another sort of a thinning your deck card to a certain extent, as it does discard the 2 you don't pick. But with double Hydra on the board, this is going to be a straightforward turn. And Dragon Synergy. It's going to be difficult, this expansion.
Yep.
Oh, wait.
He's got a hand of dragons full of dragons right now.
Operatives. Operatives everywhere.
Can't hit the Hunter's Mark since it was conveniently nerfed to 1 mana, which would have been absolutely bonkers on this turn if there's a second Hunter's Mark in the deck and it was still 0 mana for, but I imagine he's taking it anyway, yeah.
Nah, you go for the cute cat, alley cat combo. Just playing them.
I mean, it's 6 damage into the Hydra, but yeah, Hunter's Mark just seems much more realistic in this spot.
Yeah, and this is why, you know, you were saying earlier, Hydra's nowhere near as good from behind, because Hydra is a lot of damage, but it's a lot of damage once in one direction per turn, right?
Is that Hyena enough to change the tide here? He can Hyena Unleash and Hunter's Mark get 2 huge threats in play now with the Hydra and the buffed up Hyena.
And there was no answer to the Hydra.
Exactly.
No clean answer.
And even if Hunter Ace picked up an answer from Ursi's deck on the previous turn, that's only an answer to one of them. So that looks really strong. Really strong to me. Looks like we're going to see it. The Hyena is coming down. Unleash and Hunter's Mark will leave him with an 8-4 Hydra and a huge Hyena on board.
Ooh.
What was that noise, Raven?
Probably one you've never heard before because you play life in mute.
What? I muted my life? Where has that come from? That's not even a thing.
It is now.
Okay.
So work out where exactly wants to put these doggos. I imagine the Hydra's going to go into the Twilight Drake just to make it as safe as possible. You could go face.
Well, he's thinking about Dragonfire Potion, right?
Yeah.
How he wants to impact on that. And he is, in fact, just going to send this damage downtown. Dragonfire Potion is now just a complete clear straight off the back. Hunter Ace's face. That pickup, he did have the Hunter's Mark to clear out already. You could have left just the 2 power on board, traded into the Hyena first, Hunter's Mark to the Hydra, traded his 1/6 in. But Dragonfire Potion is a full clear here. That doesn't necessarily make it better, though, because he actually gets to maintain a bit of tempo with the Hunter's Mark.
Yeah, I was going to say, it looks nice. If it was turn 7, he could Hunter's Mark Dragonfire, then, the game just changes completely. Crackling Razormaw off the Discover here, and second Hunter's Mark. It's gone for it. Interesting. I guess there wasn't much. Sorry, what was the third option?
I mean, I think he's just in the situation where, like, okay, I don't have Shadow Word Death. The only way I'm going to lose this game is to just big, efficient minions like Savannah Highmane or second Hydra. So he's just making sure he's got clean answers now. And now, especially since he can pair it with Dragonfire Potion on any given turn. Yeah. With 2 dragons on board, he can just push face damage, clear out anything that gets played by Ursi.
Yeah, and the Macaw is in hand.
Macaw!
Gotta wait till it's played, so it's disappointing. I thought we talked about this.
Nope.
Okay, tracking's going to be played. It's Unleash the Hounds, Alley Cat, and Highmane. Highmane going to be picked up, can be dropped this turn, and I simply think Ursi has to at this point. He needs something that will maybe leave him minions on the board next turn to build on that. Hydra, if a death just gets popped out, then it's so slow. It is so slow, and it might be too slow for him to win this game. You can see Ursi in deep conversation with his team there, just chattering away on exactly what to play out this turn.
Well, he does have the hardest of hard reads, that there is no Shadow Word Death in his opponent's hand, based on the actions of the 2 previous turns. And the Highmane just gets traded out on board. It doesn't stick to commit face damage the next turn. There's just no way that's happening. So the Hydra here, I actually like this more because it actually has a chance of connecting face on the next turn. Ursi is just going off that hard read of no Shadow Word Death, which is very easy to make with your last Hydra sticking for a couple of turns. And this gives him a chance of getting 8 damage downtown to Anduin, which is probably the only way he's winning this game at this point.
Yeah, it pretty much needs the kill commands off the top to be able to finish off the damage here. Dragon Priest, great deck. We talked about how powerful it is, but outside of those big Priest of the Feast turns, it doesn't really he's not really got the ability to heal in any way. So if you can just push enough damage, brave it a little bit, and then you can finish off with kill command, it's pretty huge. But what's probably the 10th operative of this game is going to open up a Animal Companion, for Hunter Ace. And he said he's not playing Hunter. He may as well be at this point.
Yeah, I think Alley Cat has been offered in every operative so far as well. So yeah, it's just not taking Cute Cat. Unlucky. Now Highmane's going to come down. Slightly more competitive position for the Highmane to be in. That Draconid Operative is still there, but the rest of the power isn't on the board. The Cleric can't really impact the 2/2s that come out here. But Hunter Ace was able to pick up Animal Companion, which is, 2 of the 3 options are very strong for him in this position. because he can either just push damage with Huffer and just set up a lethal himself, or Misha providing taunt is very useful to him. But that Shadower Death is pretty strong as well.
Finally picked up the death, which means doesn't necessarily have to Dragonfire Potion now to clear up, you know, if he wants to keep the operative alive.
Yeah.
So now he can just go for the Animal Companion first, getting the Misha, very nice, you know, roadblock for Ursi here to try and deal with. Shadow of Death going to clear this up very easy. Can even develop the like a crawler if he really wants. Not really expecting too many pirates in the hunt deck.
No real reason to go face here. It doesn't set up lethal for you on the following turn, so I'd be expecting to see a trade into one of the 2/2s. So now that's the decision, right? Heal up, get more value out of your operative, and draw a card, or just gain additional power on board.
I think he's already seen an Unleash, right? So I think I would be okay with the Crawler this turn, just because it's another minion that can probably trade into most of the Hunter minions that get played at this point.
Sure.
He could just heal up his operative if he really wants, just to draw a card after the trade.
Yeah, I mean, those are the two options, Raven.
He could heal his own face.
He could also do that, yeah.
So 3 options.
Or he could also heal the cleric. If we're going to go through every legal option of Hearthstone...
He could also pass.
Exactly, yeah. The 2 viable, reasonable options that a sane human being might make were Crawler and heal his operative, and he went with healing the operative. Holy Nova being that card that was picked up, that would have been drawn anyway for this turn, but that is going to well and truly, finally, and ultimately blow out this game now.
Yep, completely. Both minions that are Death Rattles on the board of Ursi's side can be traded into quite happily. Holy Nova's going to both clear them up and draw cards for Hunter Ace, and this is probably going to spell doom, as Hunter is not known for its ability to continually refill the board, and Ursi currently sitting on 0 cards, so it looks like Norway is fighting back at this point.
If he's trading with the operative here, which is what it looks like, then it looks like he's going to go with Primordial Drake instead of the Holy Nova. So he doesn't want to trade with the Misha in order to keep it alive. But no, just a little animation issue, but he is going to go with the Holy Nova here.
Going through all the options.
Draws 2 cards, connects to face with the operative, down to 8. Lethal is set up, develops the Crawler, heals his face. That is checkmate, and that is 2 games to 1 for Hunter Ace and for Team Norway.
Yep, there is no kill command that deals 14 that Ursi could draw. That would be actually good to be true.
9 mana Beast Deathwing. No, unlucky.
It's going to be the Warrior legendary card that deal. Well, imagine if the Holy Nova wasn't there.
It's true.
Like, that would have been sick. Like, you could play King Mosh and it would have cleared off most of the board.
He Holy Nova'd instead of Drake to play around Macaw into King Mosh. What a god!
Hunter Ace knows the game, right? He has got a strong grip on this meta and a strong grip on this game as he knocks Ursi down a peg. And it's going to be 2-1 for Norway now as the another young prodigy starts making some work for his country and his team. Norway now only need to win 1 more game, and Finland need to win 2 more to be able to, you know, get the first win of their first match within the Hearthstone Global Games.
Yeah, and Priest picking up a win for both sides, and very comfortably in the end. There was that one moment in the previous game where the Dragon Priest looked like it was maybe in danger of getting burst down, but in the end it turned out to be overwhelming control for the Dragon Priest. And again, one of the real sleeper decks of the new format is that Dragon Priest, and being used to huge success by both Kufton and Hunter Ace for Finland and Norway respectively now.
Yeah, it's probably one of the better performing decks across the last 2 days in total as well. I'm pretty sure most of the players who brought Dragon Priest has won their games, so very convincing even though there's a few different builds. I know Pavel was bringing Dragon Priest but with like Glimmer Root and some other like different cards, should I say. They play Priest of the Feast as well, so you know, you do have a few more slots available because there's not so many dragons. There's not the Corruptors, for example, as well. So a few slots to play around with. But yeah, Dragon Priest performing very well. You can see the actual graphic is incorrect, I think, by looks things. Hunter Ace did win that game, right? I wasn't imagining that.
Yes,
okay, so Hunter Ace did win, so Norway is 2-1 up, not Finland. And it is going to be Zyrez versus Janetsky, who's going to be Warlock on Warlock action. And we've seen a few different Warlock decks knocking around as well. And also, again, you know, Zyrez in that slot there, which means he's in the 4th player slot and in the ace match. So he's taking the Osaka route of
Yes.
being the, like, I will close it out if it needs closing out, guys.
Yeah, and I think it's a very interesting matchup to come down to a Warlock mirror, as you now see the graphic corrected 2-1 to Norway, in fact, but still Warlock versus Warlock. And now Zoo and Hanlock are the two, go-to archetypes that we have been seeing. Feels like I'm in 2015 all over again saying that. But there's also been that odd Sifka lock, let's call it, that's all about just little pieces of healing to stabilize your life total so that you can use Blood Bloom for massive effect. Blood Bloom is a card that instead of paying mana for a card, you pay the equivalent cost in health. So it's just small amounts of healing over and over again, and then Blood Bloom into Doom, for example, was a huge combination.
Yeah, and this is it's just one of the many things I say that'll make me sound a bit stupid probably. But until I actually saw it happen, I did not fully grasp the Blood Bloom into Doom. You draw cards, and then you've got like 8 mana spare. Potentially, on turn 10, for example. I was like, oh, you can actually play these cards you draw as well. So you see like Doom, Twisted Nether, the big clears, taking up most of your turn. But taking up health instead opens up so many options with the cards you already have, and the cards you draw from them as well. So it is one of those huge combos we see.
Yeah, you're right. That did make you sound stupid. Yeah, there's the double, basically the double dip of it. Blood Bloom can allow you to play Doom much earlier, so you can clear a board that's you normally wouldn't be able to interact with because Doom is just a horribly clunky card. Same with Twisting Nether. And then that situation you described in the late game exactly is you just get a free tempo turn to follow up your AoE.
And it works with Medivh.
Yes, but there are more likely Warlock decks that we're going to be seeing here, so let's talk about those a little bit. The Hanlock variant coming out now potentially has humongous Razor Leafs in there, and Zoo got a lot of new toys to play with as well. But these are the two players that are going to be jamming this out. Yeah, Raven, Zerez wants to remind the world that Norway is not the capital of Sweden. Raven.
And then Norway's a strong, independent country that don't need no sun. Wow, Zerez. That's sass. I love it. I do like Zerez. He's a very good player, a very funny guy, and a good streamer too. So we're hopefully going to see him play something a little bit cool. Although, actually, from what I know of Zerez, I would not be surprised at all if it's a Zoo build.
Yeah.
It really, it's one of his style of decks.
Right. And Yanetsky as well, let's give him his little moment in the sun. Doesn't represent Finland, he represents Winland.
I like the approach from these players. Absolutely love it. They are full of sass, full of spice. So yeah, absolutely fantastic. Looking forward to these guys play. The Zoo decks as well. We'll find out what decks they're going to play when we get into the game, of course. But even the Zoo builds, there's like a million at this point. Yeah, there's so many. The discussions over even just single card inclusions and what's worth it with, do you play double Argus? Do you play double Egg, for example? If you play Egg, then you probably play the Pterodax. And then that has knock-on effects how many discards you use. We are going to see a Zoo off with Yanetsky, with the Firefly, who's, again, I feel like you could almost put Firefly in any deck, and it's probably going to do some work.
Yes.
Because of the sheer value it represents. And then Zyrus as well. Looks like old school Zoo at this moment in time, but I have no doubt there's some new stuff in there too.
Yeah, and you see some of the debates coming out straight away. Ravasaur Run is not a card everyone is using. Bloodsail Corsair and therefore the Patches package up against Fireflies. Argent Squires are thrown into that mix as well as the argument as to which one-drops you want to play in this new meta. Then you move forward to the argument of what are you filling that Imp Gang boss-shaped hole with. You've seen Devilsaur Eggs, Egg Nappers, all these kind of things come out on play just to get Death Rattles to curve your Ravenous Pterodax into. Then it's the argument of what 4-drops do you play? Do you have Fellhounds? Do you have Argus? Do you have Pterodaxes? How many of each? Leroy and or Doomguard is a debate as well. So many different ways to build Zoo, as there historically has been for the history of Hearthstone. But if there's one thing that you should always keep in mind is that Zoo will always persevere. Like, cheap cards, life tap, play your cards, Warlock, that is always going to be a successful strategy, more or less.
Yeah, and I'm glad it is. Zoo's a deck I love to watch evolve and actually just be played. Because even Zoo mirrors are one of the mirrors that is actually quite enjoyable a lot of the time, depending on the current build, of course. But this is going to be great. It's going to be one of the first Zoo mirrors we see in tournament format of the expansion. So it's going to be cool to see played out. And we see the the tokeny style Malkazar's Imp from Yanetsky, and so you expect Soulfire's Doom Guards then with the Silverware Golem, of course. So a bit of a nod towards this card, and the more tokeny minions you use, the more likely is that Direwolf Alpha is going to be a card in the deck, because there's even been discussion about not playing that because of the size of some of the other minions as well. Just because if you run in double Doom Guards, like the discard package mainly, doesn't gain as much from Direwolf than like standard style Zoo.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, losing Imgang Boss and if you want to rewind losing Implosion, although that was a long time ago, those two things have had a big impact just in terms of that Imp generation being amazing for Direwolf Alpha in the first place. But still, I think when you start cutting Direwolf Alpha, the strength of Zoo is buffing small minions into big minions. And when you've already lost Power Overwhelming, Abusive Sergeant is so much weaker than it used to be. If you then start getting rid of Direwolf Alpha anymore, are you really doing Zoo things anymore at that point?
I think it's the heavier discard decks, because you just play bigger dudes in general in those. But yeah, you're completely right. Direwolf is just like, normally a staple, especially when we see cards like Ravasaur Runt here come out from Xyrez. A card I still cannot make up my mind about whether I even like, but it's going to turn into a 2-mana 2/2 with Death Rattle, create 2/1/1 cute plants.
Superior Haunted Creeper for 2 mana, solid. He snap picked the plants over +3 health as well, which is correct in my opinion, but it just shows Xyrez's comfort with the deck already. In the Zoo Mirror, the amount of health you have on your minions is less important than just having more minions. Having more minions on board than your opponent, because they can always dictate good trades with buff effects like we were just talking about. But if you have more individual bodies in play than your opponent, that gives you the ability to dictate trades more often than your opponent. So you can see that tug of war, that struggle, is exactly what's happening between the two players right now. They're both fighting to get a board that is wider than their opponents. The total amount of stats doesn't matter too much. They just want more bodies.
Yeah, and this is a very nice pickup for Xyrez. With the Death Rattle, it's going to spawn additional +2 on the Councilman already, and generate tokens that can be used for Pterodax next turn. He could have used Knife Juggler to get a couple of juggles out, but this was the much, much better pickup. Devilsaur Egg in the hand for Yanetsky, and this is a more reasonable Nerubian Egg. Basically, it's a 3-mana 0/3 that creates a 5/5, so just +1 up everything on the Nerubian Egg, and that's what you get here. So this is one of the power cards because of cards like Ravenous Pterodax.
Yes. Annoyingly, the +1 health on the egg itself is actually a nerf from Nerubian Egg, because you want...
Like I said, more reasonable Nerubian Egg.
Okay. Like, obviously, the stats are bigger on both parts, but the fact the stats are bigger on the egg itself is actually worse a lot of the time, because you play egg to get blown up by your opponent's AoE when they AoE your board, so that 1 extra health means that it just survives more AoE effects than Nerubian Egg would have done.
Yeah, but the 5/5 is actually a very nice and awkward shape to deal with for a lot of classes as well. Out of range of Soulfire, for example, so very awkward to try and negotiate here. We see the 1/1s getting picked up by Yanetsky and cleared off for Xyrez there, so the Pterodax is either A, just not going to be played the next turn, because I doubt you want to Pterodax the Councilman at this point with the power of that card. That is more like it.
Yeah, that play from Yanetsky is very smart on multiple levels. Firstly, it deliberately denied that Pterodax, exactly as you said. But again, it's just going back to that Zoo Mirror dynamic that I was talking about. He doesn't care about this Councilman. It's a huge threat, but if he can isolate it as 1 minion on the board, it can only do one thing every turn. Those 1/1s are actually a much bigger threat in terms of being able to pick apart his board. So again, I love the way Yanetsky has played this so far. He has had a much stronger early game curve than Xyrez in this matchup so far, but he's played it out very nicely.
Yeah, and we see the power of just Firefly, right? Just another token, another dude on the board. The second half of it, the Flame Elemental still on the board there as a 1/1. Devilsaur Egg going to come down now and try and set up this Pterodax, but we can see Xyrez is just playing off curve every single turn.
Unless he picks up another 1-drop to go with this Pterodax next turn, which is a distinct possibility. We saw Yanetsky just draw a ton of 1-drops early, whereas Xyrez really didn't, and that's why he fell behind as much as he did. So there's a good chance to pick up a 1-drop from his deck on the following turn, curve out with that Pterodax, but Yanetsky here has some potential power plays of his own to be able to bust through this, but having now drawn his own Pterodax, is there a big glowing spotlight on that Devilsaur Egg on his hand wanting to be developed this turn?
Yeah, he's got a couple of options, actually. You can develop the Devilsaur Egg, and there's the life tap, so imagine that is going to be the plan. He could have actually just attacked with the 1-1 and then used Pterodax this turn just to get a big dude on the board as well and try and gain speed that way, because he can actually clear off the counterman and do that. So then, although, yeah, you know, there's a Pterodax on the board next turn potentially for Xyrez, but you're always like one step ahead in terms of the power of the minions. But this does go, again, wider onto the board, more stuff. Pterodax, now there's a Voidwalker available as well. Means you can defend the Pterodax with the Adapts and the Voidwalker.
So just picking away, Xyrez just stuck with that Leroy in hand the entire game. Does not pick up the 1-drop that he would have wanted, but he is going to get to activate one of these huge power turns first. Gets +3 health. And now, with Leroy in hand, okay, the temptation maybe to go for the Wind Fury there to try and force the damage through and end the game.
Well, and this is how cool Adapt is and how cool that card's in general. Well, yeah, in this matchup, you go more health, and a bit more attack, right?
Yeah.
In a different matchup, not against Zoo, you'd probably go Wind Fury and just try and push some more pressure, but you need consistent and big minions on the board. This Pterodax does actually line up very well versus the Rabbitsaur that's going to come out from the opponent as well.
Oh, he got overlapping Divine Shield on his second pick. That's not great for him, but still, +3 health and Divine Shield is a good combination. 4-7 Divine Shield meets a 5-8 on Xyrez's side, so straight away you can just see the power level of this card when it hits on the egg is absurd. I mean, obviously that dream does not happen. It's not how you evaluate a card, just looking at the dream scenario. But speaking of dream scenario, Xyrez mouthed something there which I will not repeat. The kids at home have already been traumatized by those adorable elementals getting murdered. No reason to taint your ears with Xyrez's
All
foul
we'll
language.
say is he didn't appreciate the Soulfire into the Silverware Golem there.
All I'll say is it was in a language I could understand.
It's going to be the trade. The Voidwalker, again, doing a great job of defending the two big guys on the board in forms of the Rabbitsaur and the Pterodax. This is just a truly prehistoric brawl going on now with so many dinosaurs everywhere. Even the egg now for Xyrez, able to try and pop it. But the weird thing is now, with like Direwolf onto the egg to trade into one of the guys that'll do enough damage, is going to feel weird. It only does 1 damage anyway. It has very little impact except getting itself popped.
Wait, how are we dying?
For Xyrez's next turn.
Oh, I see. Okay, right, sure.
Just in terms of his egg being a little bit redundant. Defender Vargas, very, very nice as well. Going to push potentially those minions' health just out of range of realistically anything that's going to happen.
Yeah, this does look almost irreversible from Xyrez's side. He's just in such a strong position here. Oh, that Yanetsky can just choose. Yeah, there you go. Called it right on time.
Defender Vargas lethal.
I think Xyrez mentally gave that game up when the Silverware Golem came out from the Soulfire, but officially gave the game up a turn later. And that now is squaring the series up 2-2. We are going to go down to the ace game. The ace players get to play again. They are nominated at the start, and it's going to be Ursi up against Xyrez. And crucially, they can only play one of the class that they did not play in their previous game, or the 9th class that has not been seen yet. So for Ursi, that is Warrior or Druid. For Xyrez, that is Paladin or Rogue.
Yeah, I imagine we are going to see the Rogue come out of those two choices. Paladin, not really a deck we've seen too much from. I don't think we've seen Paladin once so far in this tournament. I think it's still got a lot of time to be worked out. We've seen some players mess around with some mid-range versions or control versions, but nothing really stuck out. And then you look at Rogue. The power of Quest Rogue, the power of Miracle Rogue.
Yes.
Can't really argue with either. Both of those are fantastic picks, so not too much of a surprise there. But yeah, Xyrez is going to just be going, okay, there's one. I'll go again, and I'm going to be more confident this time as we see the classes that I picked. Warrior versus Rogue. If the Warrior is Pirates, it doesn't really matter which Rogue they pick. At least in my experience, as the Pirates can just dominate Rogue no matter what.
Yeah, this matchup is going to be very, very polarized just on which warrior Ursi chose to bring with him. So let's look at what his lineup was going into his original game. He gave himself Warrior and Hunter, which suggests to me this might be Control Warrior, because do you really want to put 2 aggressive decks together on one player? You could. Your strategy could be to say, you know, I want to always have an aggressive deck to pick in this matchup against someone else. But just a suspicion that this might be Control.
Well, the thing as well is, though, you could do that with the knowledge that you're the ace player, right?
Yes.
So then you could want the extra aggressive deck,
Correct.
depending on what's left. And then the 9th deck could be a control deck,
Yes.
so you've always got the choice.
Yes.
So there's so much to think about.
In this case, though, I will say Ursi's 9th deck in this case is Druid, which I would expect is aggro Druid. So then there is his second aggro deck that he could have chosen. Instead, he's gone with the Warrior here. But knowing that he could potentially go up against Rogue, why would you not pick the more aggressive option of your 2 decks? It's actually very, very hard for me to get a read on what kind of Warrior we're going to see here.
Yeah, it's weird. Like, would you want to pick the Taunt Warrior into a Rogue? Like,
no.
Yeah, you just don't, right?
No.
So you just have to guess it's, Pirate Rogue, because they're just, unless there's some new archetype that they've come up with, maybe, but you just have to guess it's Pirate Rogue. Pirate Warrior, sorry.
Okay.
Pirate Rogue, new archetype, it's fine. Rogues play pirates, it's no problem. But yeah, it's very strange, because I would just want to take the aggro Druid if that was the case. Looks like we are going into the game, and it is Quest Control Warrior versus the Rogue deck. And I saw a Shiv in hand for Zyrus at this point, and this is going to be the Miracle version, which I knew I liked Zyrus. I didn't want to watch Quest Rogue again.
I definitely did not want to watch Quest Rogue. I'll put that on the table immediately. Big fan of Miracle Rogue. Big fan of this new build with Sherazin Corpse Flower. I hope I just got that right. Awesome. New addition. I have played a good chunk of this deck, and again, Sherazin is a card that I got woefully wrong. That's admirable. Of course, fellow Hearthstone caster tweeted recently, how did I make this mistake again? Recurring resources are just always good. Yeah. And yeah, Sherazin just falls into that category. So it was a big whiff for me on my predictions. I did not think the Corpse Flower was going to be effective. But speaking of Corpse Flowers, the other big pickup here is that Vilespine Slayer, which is massive in this matchup.
Yeah, the Vilespine Slayer, when comboed, just kills a minion. Doesn't care what it looks like. It does not discriminate at all. Doesn't care about Divine Shield. It just kills a minion. Doesn't matter. And when you're against a deck that plays big taunt minions, insta-killing is pretty good. In my experience, as I've also been playing a good chunk of this Miracle, or at least, this style of Rogue. And, that card is so important in this matchup.
Yeah, we may have a battle of 48 different countries here in Hearthstone Global Games, but Vilespine Slayer sees no race, no nationality, no religion. It just indiscriminately murders you.
Exactly. Dinosaur, turtle, tar creature, doesn't care. It will kill them all with abandon. So, it's going to be huge. But one of the problems as well, or not so much a problem, but the hard decision points are what do you use it on? If you use it early enough, then...
Sorry, Zyrus is just clearly having a really, really good time right now. I don't know what's going on.
Just cracked a great joke. Yeah. I wish we could hear it. Team Norway, no doubt hilarious. But the timing of Vilespine is very difficult, I feel. Because you can use it to gain tempo, clear off an early minion, an early taunt, or you can save it for the big awkward ones like Ali Armorsmith that can potentially push your opponent out of lethal range in the next few turns as well. But Ooh indeed has sort of pretty much just mouthed a emote I believe everyone's used once or twice with the coin. Gonna hold on to it though and not create a bigger Van Cleef.
Yeah, Coin Edwin didn't actually really do a great deal. It was 6-6 instead of 4-4, whereas this is going to allow him to trade effectively into either Stonehill or Tar Creeper that gets played this turn anyway. Plus, look at the rest of his hand. He has Auctioneer, great with coins. He has Vilespine Slayer, which needs to be comboed. Yep. So therefore, the coin in his hand. And this is... resource allocation has always been one of the key skills with Miracle Rogue. Just in the past, whether you've used resources on your questing or your Van Cleef or your Auctioneer, Violet Teachers in the past as well. I think with this deck, more so than any iteration we've seen, that resource allocation is so important because now there's Edwin, there's Vilespine Slayer, there's Gadgetzan Auctioneer, there's Sherazin itself. Some lists are playing one or potentially even two questings in there as well.
Say one or two Sherazins is like, nope, most lists are playing one, so. That's how legendaries work, my friend. But yep.
It's the fact I don't say dumb things, so you have to make up dumb things to make fun of, whereas I just have real-world material to mock at any given time.
Whatever you need to tell yourself, so whatever you need to tell yourself to make yourself feel better. But Daihon Hatchling is going to be the pick there for Ursi to going to help ease out his curve, going to 5 and 6 now, going to pound a lot of pressure. And then we saw from Xyrez the cool interaction with the tar creatures is that he just didn't even attack.
Yes.
Because his opponent can only hit him for 1 on his turn, not 3. And then we're going to see a Vilespine Slayer used on a relatively low value minion. But
just a tempo play, right?
Yeah, it means he can continue pushing, he can continue developing the board, and most importantly, he has a second one.
Yes, and I think the tar mechanics are going to be something that it takes at least a couple of weeks for the scene as a whole to really nail down. Like, when is it correct for me to kill this? When is it correct for me to just pass and just, you know, not let it do anything the next turn?
Well, it's really awkward as well when you know, like, as Rogue especially, well, if I dagger it this turn, I set up for, you know, a better trade, but I'm daggering it and taking 3 when my minions, you know, might take 1 if he chooses to trade. So it does get very, I agree, it gets very, very strange to work out exactly when to attack. Xyrez, Violet Teacher, which might give a nod to this not being Arcane Giants.
Correct, yes. Violet Teachers usually come in to replace the Arcane Giant, although I've also seen lists that have kept both Arcane Giants and are still playing the Teachers and have cut things like Mimic Pod, for example, although we have already seen Xyrez use a Mimic Pod. So if I had to guess, if I was a gambling man, I'd say that there is 1 or 0 Arcane Giants in this deck, and that's probably to his detriment in this matchup, because those Arcane Giants, huge late game threats against control decks.
Yeah, exactly. Just being able to just kind of just drop them whenever you like, because you are going to get to the point where they're cheap enough, and just apply the pressure exactly when you desire. I do like this though. Violet Teacher into backstab is going to make a very clean kill here on the Direhorn, and the Vilespine still gets to push.
Vilespine is going to connect here. There is double sleep with the fishes in hand for Ursi, where he can start controlling this board position, but it doesn't fit in too nicely with anything from his hand, particularly. Whirlwind double sleep would be a pretty miserable resource dump just to get rid of this board. So I think Ursi probably just going to keep developing taunts now with the Ornery Direhorn.
Yep, I think, you know, a very consistent theme we've been seeing with this Quest Warrior. The options being a Rocky Carapace at +3. There's some of the 2/2 plants with Living Spores and Divine Shield you can see now. But one of the common themes is you build up taunts, build up taunts, build up taunts, and then wait till the turn you proc the quest, brawl clear, go.
Yes.
You know, like that's generally the rough game plan against most decks. I believe that's what Ursi's going to try and do here.
So in this spot, health is just strictly better than Divine Shield, right? Just between those two, since you're not dealing with that 1/1 on the board, 3 health is worth more than a Divine Shield every single time. So the debate there for Ursi was between the health and the 2 1/1s. Double Mimic Pod now, interesting.
I do like Mimic. Sometimes Mimic Pod just wins you the game. It's
true.
Let's be honest. So running 2 of them, can't really argue with that. It's another spell as well to go along with the Violet Teacher. You know, to help maybe if you double up some cheaper cards to combo in terms of spells, you can go even wider with the Teacher. And also these Shivs, I imagine there is no Fan of Knives in the list.
Very likely Shiv has replaced Fan of Knives.
This actually makes this matchup better.
I obviously that's only 1 Shiv we've seen so far. The Shiv was hit from the original Mimic Pod, so there might only be 1 Shiv in the deck. But the second Mimic Pod makes me wonder if maybe Sap has been cut out as well, which could be pretty devastating for this matchup.
Yeah. Very interesting build here from Xyrez, and he knows his rogue as well.
He does.
We were talking about he's a deck, deck builder in general. He is a rogue specialist. There goes Dirty Rat. Here comes the brawl. Is there an option not to? He could Whirlwind Sleep and clear off pretty much. Well, he could Whirlwind Sleep or Whirlwind Sleep War Axe and clear off.
Well, yeah, Whirlwind Sleep Axe looks very strong. Why put yourself in the position where 1 out of 6 times that Auctioneer lives and you lose the game? I just don't see the reason to take that risk in this spot. You just won the lottery, my friend.
Down.
I mean, you ratted that Auctioneer. You've just won the lottery, so cash in your ticket and clear the board. Do not give another chance for Xyrez to get lucky with the brawl outcome and still be in a good position.
This Mimic Pod could be huge, though, because that was a great clear from Ursi.
I mean, okay. So that's the second best outcome, probably. I was going to say there needs to be Arcane Giants in the deck, and that Mimic Pod needs to hit the Arcane Giants if Xyrez is going to have a real shot from this position. Auctioneer is obviously not too bad either.
Okay, Shaku as well.
Yeah, I play Shaku. I think Shaku's really strong in this deck.
Yeah, well, so Ursi had a fantastic clear, but now, let's be honest, his hand is Brawl, Sleep with the Fishes, and then whatever he draws now. It needs to be a good taunt.
And then this huge taunt that he draws. No, well,
it's going to Dirty Rat another Gadget Zan. Then a third Gadget Zan will get played. It's like, what? Two are too many in Rogue already. Why do I have to deal with a third? Also, Dirty Rat into Shaku could be a bit of a pain as well.
It could, actually, in this spot, yeah. If Shaku came out, that would be kind of a nightmare for Ursi. Cold Blood as well. Xerez is just playing 37 cards in his Rogue deck. What?
Emerald Hive Queen! He's just got cards in there. I don't really know. So this is, he's got his anti-aggro tools. Because to be fair, he might be not running SI.
Yes, but there was only, like, in the list that I'm already, like, using as a baseline, there's only one SI7 agent. Yeah. So it's not even that many
that's only
slots
one
given
Emerald
up.
Hive Queen.
That's only one Emerald Hive Queen, but it's a Shiv, it's Shaku, it's Cold Blood, it's
Could be
the
one
Violet
Shiv,
feature.
one Fan of Knives.
That would be a really weird list to put together, though, with that many one-offs.
That's
true. Fair enough.
Definitely won't see a Reno, though. We know it's not a Reno deck. Emerald Hive Queens are very interesting choices. Well, one we've seen, of course. This is Mimic Pod. So,
it makes sense, right?
You don't play any minions early on, right? So
you play a 2/3 on turn 1 and you press hero power.
I think there's no Swashbucklers.
Swashbuckler just occurred to me as I started thinking through the early game turns with Emerald Hive Queen that maybe Swashbuckler is one of the things he's got.
He's like, wait a minute.
Well, he knew it was there, because I believe when you Mimic Pod something, both of the copies get the tag of created by Mimic Pod. I think. I'm not 100% convinced on that, but I think that's the case.
I'd love it if somehow Xyrus just had a fourth gadget and he's like, what?
But even if so, I mean, there'll probably be at least one person on his team that is designated to be hand tracking perfectly.
The Mimic Pod,
so yeah, even if the UI indicator wasn't there, there will be someone on his team that said, okay, that was the Mimic Pod card. He has a second auction in.
Yeah, and Xyrus going a bit heavy on the board now. Emerald Hive Queen hitting the board there. Going to make his minions cost 2 more. But Shaku as well. I don't know if you'd want to do this with Brawl being something to think about. Although, we can see Brawl is available, but he's gone a little bit wider there. And this could make Brawl worthwhile now for Ursi.
Still not the highest value Brawl I've ever seen in my life. If the 3-2 wins, I mean, I guess it's a decent outcome, but otherwise, I mean, what do you kill? You kill your own 3-2 alongside a 2-3 and potentially leaving Shaku alive. Like, it's not a super high value Brawl in this spot, and you're still at 23. So I don't think you're too panicked about the situation.
I just think the odds of getting Shaku dead is worth it, because that's you've seen all the auctioneers are gone, and there's little value. You've just seen it where Cyrus has chosen to play a minion in terms of the Hive Queen as well. Probably know the second Hive Queen is in hand as well, so there just might not be that much damage generation, but damage is exactly what Ursi has got and can play now, because the Hive Queen is going to proc these effects, and the negative buff isn't going to make a difference because these are all spells.
So not attacking first because he wants to get the Cold Blood onto Shaku to make it have the most resilience here. So now he's going to spread out both Cold Bloods here. Is attacking with the Shaku. Picks up Grime Street Smuggler, which is at least a decent card to pick up some more value for him later if this board state does get answered, which it certainly will do in some form by Ursi's Brawl now. This is a much more desperate situation. Will be able to clear the board regardless, but might end up having to face tank another 6 damage here.
Double execute, not what Ursi wants at all here.
Oh, it is the 6! That is massive for Xerez.
Shiv number 3.
Shiv number 3, Auctioneer number 3. 2 Emerald Hive Queens have been seen. This rogue list is insanity.
6 damage available. There's the prep as well. This draw could end the game. And this draw is going to end the game. Fist pump from Xyrez. And that is going to be Norway taking it. Xyrez, number 4 player and the ace player as well. He's going to take this game with his weird as hell rogue deck.
Weird as search my brain for a word that isn't an expletive in this situation. Yeah, congrats to Xerez, congrats to Norway. Fantastic performance from them. Finland held their own as well, taking it down to the last, but it is Norway's time to have their moment in the sun. And hey, let's be honest, these Scandinavian countries do need their moment in the sun because they are from the land of perpetual darkness.
Yeah, and it's just a cool series overall. Xyrez just pulling it out the bag. We would, kind of, Xyrez would be the front runner for Norway anyway in terms of historic play, performance, etc. we can see now that he did end up finishing up this series. Going to be a close one, and again, we mentioned that number of wins is important and number of losses is important. So Finland did lose, but they lost as well as they could have done, which sounds kind of strange, but they have the best chance at tie breaks with the first game under the, Stop laughing at me.
It's the patronizing little pat on the head. It's like, you're a loser, but you're the best kind of loser.
Hey, if that pat on the head means that they potentially qualify out of groups by the end of this stage 1, then I'm okay with it.
Absolutely. Could not agree more. But yeah, that rogue list is the big story, I think, to come out of this tournament, come out of that series at least, because there is some crazy stuff in there. I don't know if Emerald Hive Queen has been experimented. Someone's posted the list somewhere. I haven't come across it, and I've been scouting rogue lists pretty extensively. So Zerez, as we mentioned, huge deck builder, got some unique ideas about how to put together Hearthstone decks in a lot of situations. And that deck looked pretty wacky, but it got him there in the end, in tough circumstances as well. Because remember, very little value from 3 Gadgetzan auctioneers. 2 of them got answered by Dirty Rats and removal, and one of them was just, I think Coin Shiv was all that he got off it. So rough spot for him to be in, and he still found a way with the damage in the end.
Yeah, and I think we can check out how the group looks as well now.
Sweet.
I believe it's just the first match played out in the group as well. So, Norway's going to be at the top, and Finland's going to be at the bottom, of course. But it does mean that they're going to be, off to a great start for Norway there with the 3-2 record that you can see. Still Japan, Italy, Israel, and Chile in the group as well. So they're going to be playing out over the next few weeks. And we'll start to see these groups develop and see who the real front runners are after, a couple more weeks play.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a strange-looking group. Obviously, Japan and Italy, I know a little bit about, but Chile, for example, no idea what I'm expecting to come out of them, to be perfectly honest. So, that group is definitely anyone's for the taking, really. If one team really puts together a good run, then they will probably just run away with that group.
Yeah, absolutely amazing play. And it's going to be great to see the actual, like I said, the countries we don't know too well. Because, it's great to see the things we expect. And, all the pros we were aware of. We've seen play a lot of stuff. But, going to be cool to see the front runners out of those lesser known countries. But we're just going to go to a very short break while we set up the next series. It's going to be coming up. So don't go anywhere, guys. This is Hearthstone Global Games.
We're almost there. Quiet down, everyone. This is not like any of our previous expeditions. This will be far more ambitious. We're stepping into a land of primordial wonder. Infused with astonishing elemental energies. The plant life here holds very unusual properties. So don't touch anything. And while you may be excited to see the local fauna, you might want to make sure they don't see you. Because their powers of adaptation are devastating. Make no mistake, we will be tested at every turn. But if we stay on our guard, we might just survive. Now then, are you ready? Then let's journey into Ongoro Crater.